So the truth is, not everyone is addicted to porn. Some people have just used porn as an outlet, an scapegoat, a way of coping with stress when they are under extreme duress. So recently, God convicted my heart. God spoke to me that I was defiling the marriage bed. And let's go a little deeper. But before I go deeper into that, I want to give you a background. I want to share a bit of my history, how the years have been for me. I've been walking with God for 13 plus years, and even filming this video was something hard for me to do because I felt like 13 years walking with the Lord and you still struggling with that. But you see, sometimes we struggle with certain things because we haven't got to the root issue. We haven't got to the root why. Why are we using certain things, me specifically porn, as an outlet to escape, to numb my pain, to avoid addressing why I'm in pain, to give me something to feel again? You see, what one man calls pleasure, God calls perverted, tainted, something that is not in its original form. I know you have been believing that you have every right to just go and watch other people explore their bodies, their sexuality. I know that you think that self-stimulation is something that is okay because anything to make yourself feel better, and you're just, again, expressing yourself and you're exploring your body and what works and what doesn't, but it's still not in God's original design. So now let me take you deeper into my story and my testimony. So the way that I grew up was being exposed through a magazine. The magazine was very graphic, and a family member exposed me to that. And that exposure led to more curiosity, led to me going on a scavenging hunt, thinking that I was going to find something really good, something that would just answer all the questions that were now stirring up in my head because somebody, the devil, opened up this door. And see, when we go back to the garden, we see that the enemy tempted them, that what they had been given to have jurisdiction over, to experience, to taste, was not enough. And so they continued and continued down the path of curiosity, specifically Eve, right? And created the life, the nature of sin. And so as a child, you're not even aware of what sin is. If you have not specifically grown up in a family that teaches about sin. And so, yeah, a magazine was the thing that led me down a scavenger hunt of looking for something that I didn't know that I was going to find. And it's funny because it simply started with me and a family member going through another family member's closet, trying on clothes and trying to be all grown and funny or whatever, just being girls, right? Girls love to play dress up. And as we were playing dress up, we discovered DVDs, tapes. Yeah. Now, those tapes led to more online research. You know what I mean, right? So it became this perpetual, consistent thing. I am 10 to 13 years old. Somebody has opened, has exposed me, has robbed me of my innocence. Now, even prior to that, I knew as a kid, I was exploring intimacy with both female and male. How did that start? I don't know, but it happened. And I was bullied for it. And growing up, I was always being told that you will be gay. You're going to be a lesbian. You're going to be a lesbian. Oh, I could just see you being a dyke. I could just see you being a tomboy. And I don't even know the terms that they use right now. I mean, back then, yeah, it doesn't even matter. Basically, I was always given a false identity. An identity that I didn't know that I was conforming to later on throughout my teenage years. It's funny because prior to the Lord, it wasn't something that I continued to dibble and dabble into. I just began seeking it in real life. I began meeting up with girls that I met from the internet, whether it was Facebook, whether it was BlackBerry Messenger days, whether it was Instagram, you name it. I met up with people that I didn't even know who they were. And it was extremely dangerous on my part, extremely dangerous, but I was 99% of the time never alone. Never alone. I always went with a best friend that I had at the time, and I was somewhat intimate with these women. But here's the key part, is that yes, I was exposed. At some point in my life, porn had become a stimulant. It had become something that I depended on for a sense of comfort. A sense of comfort. A sense of escape. Because again, it's all fantasy. It's all made up. It's all skits. It's not real life. Though some things people are experiencing in real life, it's all fantasy when it's a film, right? It's a skit that they have to follow. When I came to the Lord, it was hard for me to even let go of the sexual experiences. It wasn't an overnight change of heart, because the way that people spoke to me was, oh, you cannot be in a homosexual relationship, this is sin. But I didn't have anyone guiding me into what sin was, who God was for me, who he wanted to be for me. I did not have the image of who God was as love, as one who sticks closer than a brother. He just seemed distant. He seemed like maybe judgmental when I first came to God. And so I started asking around. I started asking people they say that I'm not supposed to be in a relationship with another woman, that I'm not supposed to be doing these things, that it's sin. But what do you think? And I'm asking people who are adults. Who are adults? I want you to keep this in mind. One of the persons that I had asked, they told me that basically it's okay. God still loves you. And so now I'm having this double-minded message. Now that double-minded message just continued for a while. And I remember, even after giving my heart to God, I was still experimenting. But the experimenting I was doing, I was no longer being sexually intimate with people, but I was still not valuing and honoring God with my body, because I didn't know. And it wasn't like I was really talking about it. That's key. Talking about the things that we're struggling with, the things that we feel this is not right. We got to talk about it, because we have to discover why it's not right, why it's not in alignment with God. We feel a shame behind it. And if we, again, go back to the garden, Adam and Eve, they experienced shame when they were not in the will of God. I was sending images, pictures of my body, my intimate parts, and it got to a moment where somebody was like, oh, I'm going to blast you. I'm going to put you on the internet. And the only thing that I can think of, as I eventually talked to my pastor about it, who is now my spiritual mama today, the only thing that happened was telling them, I'm going to report you. I'm going to call the police on you. And sure enough, it never happened. They never exposed me. But it wasn't the first time that I was threatened to be exposed. Prior, when I was in middle school, this is around my 6th grade or 7th grade year, my first year of 7th grade, because I had got left back. But my first year of 7th grade, somebody that I trusted, that I felt like I needed to share my intimate body parts with for some type of validation or acceptance, they took my personal images and they shared it with people in school. So now I was being bullied. So you can see just a description, a picture, a little bit of the sexual pervertedness that had transpired in my youth. That all it took was somebody exposing me, and then me becoming more curious, and how that led down this whole rabbit hole of destruction. So now let's get deeper. I remember when I eventually fully was like, Lord, I surrender the homosexual lifestyle to you. I surrender, my desires and lusts for women. What I had come to the realization was that the lust was also perverted. What I was truly craving and desiring was intimacy with a woman, not even on a sexual level, but more on a emotional, like affectionate level, and not on a sexual level. Let me just drive that home. I had been feeling like I was missing something, that the emotional connection, the affection, the support that I had not experienced from my mom had now created this void. And I still had not known how to come to God, to let Him fill me, strengthen me, love upon me, and comfort me in my times of weakness, in my times of pain, of despair. And I'm still learning. But I thank God that I am not where I used to be. When I became under extreme duress and stress, porn became the outlet. It was something that when I was already in the place of feeling numb, I was believing that this would make me feel something good. This will make me feel something. Because what we are taught is that self-pleasure is always beneficial, never brings any harm. But that wasn't true, and that wasn't reality. So the cycle continued and continued and continued. Here is what I was saying. Porn is not an addiction for everyone. Sometimes it's just a learned habit, something that you lean to, but not an addiction, because I wasn't every single day. Over the years, even in the Lord, I would lean to this place. For a while, even before that, it was self-harm. It was other means that I've probably discussed, but I don't know if I can even get into details on here. Let's just say it revolved around scissors, fire, some form of self-infliction. I thank God for delivering me from that. But the lies that I was always being told was that I'm never enough, that I needed to be accepted, right? That I needed to belong to this magnitude. I just was so miserable. I kind of hated my life. I hated sometimes even, unfortunately, the family that I was born into, the circumstances of the family that I was born into. That's my reality. There's nothing that anyone else can change or do about it. But the only thing that I can do is change how I see it. The only thing that I can do is seek God for a different heart posture, to continue to allow Him to heal those inner parts of me by revealing them to Him, not hiding, because hiding is the thing that keeps us locked in shame. And shame is a form of bondage, a bondage that God does not want us to be in, a bondage that He died for us not to be in, that we would live holy, free, and completely set apart. So within these last few years, God had been doing a deeper inner work within my heart and within my life. As things got really emotionally stretching, things started to feel overwhelming, wounds and experiences and traumas and all the things started rising to the surface, because when God purges you, God purges you. And you can't escape it. There's no escaping it. You hear me? But the way that I escaped it was by getting my phone, getting my iPad, And now using these tools, these investments that is supposed to enhance my creativity, express my creativity, it became an escape route. It became an idol. It became the thing that distracted me from dealing with my emotional pain. And so that brings me into recently. We are in 2026, and God is telling me emotional regulation. At first, I didn't know what he meant. But as time went on, I'm like, okay, I get it. I did not know how to regulate my emotions. The way that I regulated my emotions, which isn't a bad thing, was being able to talk about it to people when I felt like it, when I felt comfortable enough. Not when shame was knocking on my door, but when I felt comfortable enough to now expose myself, to now talk about the things that I was really going through behind closed doors. Now, someone that I had in my life that I usually always spoke to about these things was and is my spiritual mom. I spoke about it a couple of times to other people, but not as deep as with her. The time before the recent time was December 25th. That's right. Christmas Day. I think I had an argument. I was just emotionally distraught, overwhelmed, angry. I don't remember what had happened, what had transpired, but that was something that I turned to. Rather than turn to God, rather than give myself the permission to feel. Because I think growing up, I also did not see people in my family, whether it was my parents, my siblings. It wasn't normalized to be able to feel and talk about your feelings. Again, there were times where I was self-harming and I did not talk about anything that I was going through. There are things that has happened to me that only maybe my spiritual mom knows. You know, years later, I told my dad, or I tried to tell my mom, and her reaction was just out of this world. December 25th, 2025. I had chosen that route. And keeping in mind, there were a lot of moments of like self-stimulation as well. But in this most recent time, it was something that I really steered away from. Because watching something, yes, created a conviction, a shame, or a guilt. It created this, I know this isn't right, but to actually watch it now, stimulate yourself to it, was a total different ball game. Like immediately I would feel sick after doing so. So here it is. I made a decision. I made a decision to believe. I spoke to my pastor at the time, and they had shared with me that, a person who continues in these cycles, it's less about behavior modification, but it's more about your identity. You lose sight of who you are. You lose sight of your identity. You lose sight of your union, your oneness with God, and who He is for you in those moments that you're feeling overwhelmed. And a lot of the times I would try to pray and I would do the renouncing and I would do all the things to try to avoid it, but it just felt like it intensified. But not doing anything also didn't feel great either, because it felt like I was still in this avoidance. A year and about 4 months had gone by of being free. I still am free. I'm just going to still claim freedom over my life because God has set us free from sin. That is not my nature. That is not my nature. Okay? So, a year and about 4 months later, and the pressure kept getting worse. And I gave in. And I tried to resist. I tried talking to God about it. But there was something in me that just was like, I want what I want. And I just don't care in this moment. So there was a mixture of defiance. There was a mixture of deep grief. Constantly, again, feeling like I was in need of companionship. And so recognizing, right, what are the things that's triggering to me? When I would feel lonely, overwhelmed emotionally, just stressed out relationally a lot of the times, that is when I would go to this porn outlet. Because it created this illusion of that I was now coming into this fantasy, that it was real, of being able to connect. That's even with Netflix. Sometimes we can get wrapped up in these reality TV shows, these romances, because we're operating out of wishful thinking. We're operating from a place of, this is what I want. This is what I need. And what we really need, what I really needed, was to sit at the feet of my beloved Father and be reminded that I was seen, that I was heard, that I was validated, and that I was loved. That there was no greater love than His love that would cast out, that would drive away any fear of being alone, any fear of not having or not being seen, and the list goes on. So a year had gone by. A year and 4 months had gone by. So I had got a new mattress, and honestly, I was super, super excited about it because I now knew that this mattress, I was going to be able to sleep a lot better, a lot less pain. I was going to just be able to sleep a lot better. But then this new mattress was defiled. In my pain, in my dysregulatedness, if that's even a word, I had now violated not only this bed, but most importantly, once again, the temple of God, the temple that He chose to dwell in, to become one with. And so I remember just reading some scripture, praying and talking to God, and hearing, defiling the marriage bed, because I was in bed and the bed no longer felt the same. The presence in my bed no longer felt the same. It was no longer comforting. It was no longer feeling fresh or new or a place of rest. It had now become a place where I was trying to resist being in when I was emotionally stressed. It was now becoming a place that I almost even feared. Not that my bed is the thing that tempts me, but it's where the sin took place. It's where I decided to expose myself again. It was a place where I decided to hide. And so it just no longer felt the same. And God said, defiling the marriage bed. That just started a whole new perspective, which I haven't fully sought Him on, but I will. It brought me back to the place of realizing that we first make a covenant with God. Sexual purity, it's not just about being abstinent or practicing abstinence to prepare for your spouse. But He is the groom that we should ultimately be preparing for. How many times will we continue to excuse ourselves, saying He understands? Yes, He understands. But that does not mean that now we dismiss acknowledging him, that now we dismiss partnering with him. We have to be able to look ourselves in the mirror, look God in the face, and let him reveal what are those inner wounds. Because any addiction, any outlet, anything that you lean to that is more detrimental or harmful or destructive, it's only a byproduct. It's only a symptom of something deeper that has not been resolved. And so my resolve comes by finding contentment in the Lord as my companion, as my friend, being willing to get back out there to connect with community. And that when I am feeling tempted, when I am feeling overwhelmed with grief, with anger, with disappointment, when it comes to community, maybe feeling like nobody understands me, or feeling I want to be understood, I want to connect with people, but I don't know where or how, being willing to still talk about it, to journal about it, but release it. Don't carry it, because of everything that you carry will carry you into something else. Carry your cross. Carry your cross. Be willing to long suffer. Be willing to deny yourself. Be willing to be loved by God, because it is the love of God that drives out sin, that drives out fear. So I hope that me sharing a bit of my story not only causes you to feel like you're not the only one who may be struggling as a daughter, as a believer, no matter how long you've been walking with God. Sometimes you can walk with God for 30 years and still have unaddressed wounds. You might lean to cigarettes. You might lean to alcohol. You lean to something if you're not leaning on him. And so this is not for us to feel ashamed about. I know I have experienced a lot of shame because, who wants to talk about these kind of things that are not normalized, things that are not, talked about within the church, and so we have people in the world talking about these things, exposing us to these things, but the church is also neglecting the significance of being able to talk about them from a way that's going to deliver people, that's going to bring deliverance to people. And so I just hope and pray that my boldness, my courage, my testimony would inspire you to do the same. Talk about it. Don't hide. Your value remains the same. God still sees you. God still honors you. God still loves you. And most importantly, your identity has not changed. You may have just lost sight of it. I lost sight of it time and time again. And sometimes that's a part of the journey. That's a part of the process. God knows your story more than you do. And so don't see it as a reason to continue to sin, but choose to turn away from sin. Choose to turn towards God and to let him be the very thing that you need in those times of sorrow, in those times of grief and duress. That's what I've been practicing. I'm not trying to keep track of how many days, because I don't even know at this point. Because the last time, right, when I said I had a year and 4 months clean, when I kept trying to keep track of all the time and the months that was going by, it just kept it focused on works and a level of performance and striving. I wasn't going deeper. I was collecting time, but I wasn't resolving the deeper issue. And so though I had fell and slipped and made these conscious decisions to choose sin over love, I learned even from those experiences. I continued to ask God, help me. Why do I continue to lean here? Help me to come out of that, Lord. And so I pray that you would do the same. I pray that this video blessed you, encouraged you, inspired you to know that your identity is rooted in him. Search God for who you are. And do not be conformed to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Let God renew your mind. God has been renewing my mind on many levels, right? Spiritually renewing me, but also neurologically. There are pathways that we create through habits that we become more dependent on. This route feels safe. This route feels dangerous. Depending on God, even though we know that He's safe, sometimes it doesn't feel safe. Sometimes this feels safe. Let God renew your mind. Let Him rewire your way of thinking to the very core. God bless you.